Hey folks, on the weekend when I do these weekend or week ahead videos, I do a bunch of research of my own before I post them, obviously. And one of the things that I do is I look at the charts on my own, sort of come up with my own thoughts about what's going to happen. And another thing that I do is I listen to a bunch of people that I respect their opinions because I like the way they think about the markets. There's specifically three of them. One of them is Jim Dalton, and each week Jim Dalton does a video called The Week Ahead on YouTube. And he talks about the price action in the market over the last few days. And here you can see he's identified a trading range here between 590 and 610 on SPY. And he'll talk about the nuance of this, but then he'll really get into the TPO charts, really, like the volume profile, and he gives his opinion. And then I listen to Shadow Trader, and that's here Shadow Trader. His weekend review video was an interesting one this week. He just spent the entire time looking at the charts and talking about what it all means, and goes in detail over. He looks at the daily time frame and what do these technicals on the daily time frame mean. He uses a really simple method that he calls it the 3-line method, but really it's just the 8 and 21 EMA and then trend lines and stuff like that. So really simple technical analysis. But there's a lot of nuance too, because he also, he was a student of Dalton, and so he looks at the TPO charts or the volume profile charts and also draws a lot of conclusions and nuance from there. And he talks about that in his video here. And then last but not least, I watched Charting Man Dan McDermott, at the Chart Guys, and he has his method as well. And what Dan likes to do, he talks about more than just SPY, which is something that I really like. Dalton and Shadow Trader really just talk about ES or SPY, a little bit of NQ for Shadow Trader, and then Shadow Trader might talk about random stocks, but Dan goes over the entire market, all sectors, and gives a really much more holistic approach. And it's funny because I always take all three opinions into account, and most of the time they align quite well. And this time I kind of got the feeling that they didn't all quite align. Now, it felt like I'll sort of go over the charts with what I think and pepper in what they talked about. And so if we're looking at QQQ, which is primarily what I trade, I don't really trade SPY. I just look at SPY to get an understanding of the market overall. But I always think of, if the market's going to move up, the Qs tend to lead it, and if the market's going to move down, the Qs tend to lead it. And so I care a lot about the Qs. I also primarily trade the names within the Qs. So I'm always looking for names relatively, trying to see relative weakness, relative strength or weakness with respect to those technology names to QQQ, right? So I want to see if something's bullish. Is it more bullish than QQQ? Is it less bullish than QQQ? And I'm always on my bottom right of my screen, whenever I'm active trading, I have QQQ there because I'm always looking at it. And so to me, this matters a lot. And I've been talking for many weeks now about this balance that we're in here, that we have been for a while. And it looks like, from Shadow Trader's perspective, this is the Shadow Trader indicator that I have on here, where he's really just got like a really simple 3-line method thing. His includes, the 3 lines are VWAP, 8 and 21 EMA, and here's the 8 and 21 on the daily. VWAP doesn't really matter because it just sort of goes from the beginning of one day to the beginning of the next day when you're looking at the daily chart. But he was looking at like some downtrending resistance on these days, and it broke out of that. He was looking at upper resistance this way, and it's broke out of that. So this is basically now back to testing all-time highs as of Friday. And then we have, like, my opinion of this is that, yes, we've been in this area of balance. You can see here. And realistically, like, I look back to the last big peak we had, which was over here, and this balance area just tested that peak. It held it as support and is carrying on up. Like, this looks to me like it's going to keep going up. And in Shadow Trader's video, he seemed actually quite bullish, where he talked about how on this Monday with the DeepSeek news, it was a really strong gap down, but we couldn't push lower after we opened. We rallied up. And actually, Dan McDermott, Charting Man Dan, talked about this as well. And then the following Monday, we had the tariff news, and it was the same thing. We gapped down and then came back up. And again, the lows couldn't keep going lower. And then here, this was on this Friday, we started to move down, but then as of the Monday, we came back up again. So every time we move down, we just can't seem to push down further, and we keep pushing back up. So Shadow Trader's sense was like, this basically means we're going to be testing all-time highs and possibly pushing through. And this whole consolidation here was just a necessary part of the next leg up. That's what Shadow Trader seems to be pushing towards, or his thoughts. And Dan McDermott, sort of the same thing. And then I listened to Jim Dalton, and he's talking about this. This is the time price opportunity chart on SPY with just regular trading hour sessions. Each box here is this is a 30-minute time frame TPO chart, and he's talking about how he felt like on this Thursday, this close at the highs was a weak close, and that because all of the value on that Thursday was down here. And then on the Friday, we basically balanced up here near the highs, right near where this closed on Thursday. And he talks a lot about all the weak buyers and weak sellers. And I got the impression from his video that he thinks if we come back down here and get into this range, then we're probably going lower again. Like he didn't seem convinced at all. He talks about how he hasn't really seen major participation of big money buyers in the market in recent weeks. And so he seems a little more bearish. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, okay, just step back out. And the reality is that, yes, a long consolidation basically means that if we consolidate here and we can't push lower, try to but couldn't, then most likely we're going to push higher. Now, what happens if we push higher and we fail? That's really the thing. Like if we came and had a strong push higher and then it immediately rejected and came back in, like if we could not close above the range significantly with some decent volume, that to me says, well, we probably will come back in and go all the way down to the bottom of the range again. And so that's my one hesitation to just thinking, oh, we're just going to rally to highs, right? And so that's the one thing I'm watching for in this coming week is what happens if we move above this area? Do we slowly just keep crawling up here? Because my sense is that if we do close above here, that's going to make a lot of people who were very bearish realize that they were wrong, and they're going to have to start. They're not going to want to be left out of the move, especially when we've been consolidating for this long. The most likely scenario after consolidating for this long and not going lower, if we're breaking higher and holding higher, is that we're going to go much higher. And this is going to be it. And so I think what I've seen in the recent market past when we were making legs up is we didn't even come back in and really set daily higher lows that much. We just go for weeks and weeks without really coming in at all. And I think that's what you need to be afraid of here if you're late, if you're not in already, which I didn't buy a lot in here. I have a couple of swings that I'm doing, but for the most part, I have my long-term stuff, of course, that's like long-term no touch, but I haven't really gotten involved in anything significant. And I've only got 4 days of trading in this coming week, and then I'm gone the week after. So for me, I'm in a weird situation where I kind of have to sit on my hands a bit and just watch and wait. But that's what I'm thinking, is if we move up through this range and hold, then that probably means we're going to keep trickling up, right? And if we don't, that is going to be key also. If we come up and even on the same day, like say we set a high in one day and then come back down into range that day, that's going to have me very bearish. I'm going to be thinking, okay, we're coming all the way back down, and I'm going to be putting on hedges if that happens. And specifically, like if we woke up on Tuesday and the market was pushing highs and even gapping up, that's a gap that I'm going to be very suspect of, and I'm going to be watching it, waiting to see if it reverses. Does it come right back down and fill the gap and continue lower? Because the other thing that's been kind of crazy in the last few weeks is the volume. So let's just look at the volume on the Qs. What do you notice about the volume on this way up? Right? It's going down. We're getting less and less volume. So here, this is like from here all the way up. Look at the volume, down, down, down. Generally speaking, the trend is down while price is going up. And I think it's even worse on SPY. Yeah, same thing. So moving up here, from here to here, up, volume down. And so that's the one thing that has me a little more bearish, even though we're now at the highs. And so I need the bulls to prove it to me, and I'm unafraid of chasing if that's what happens. I've sort of come to the conclusion that there's really like three kinds of trades that I want to get into when it comes to getting involved with a trend. And I've modified my app so that when I'm picking a name and getting involved with it, for example, here I was trading NVIDIA and I'm still in a swing on that one. And the first thing that I do is I choose a setup that I'm interested in. And so here's my A+ ones that I try to do are daily higher lows and monthly higher lows. These are, to me, the best opportunities that tend to be the most obvious to trade. And so these are the ones that I like to focus on. And if I get those, I want to size with an A size, if you understand what I mean. Then we get into trend riding, right? And this is where the trend is already underway and you're just trying to find the right way to get involved, whether, say something is stair stepping up and you want to get in on a higher low on a lower time frame that is above the prior day low, right? So an hourly higher low, or riding a moving average, or an axis or runner trade or something like that. And then a C trade that I have that I'd like to do, which there's one coming up this week that I'm interested in, is an earnings drift. And that's sort of not to the point of this video. But anyway, then I have an oops. Like, what if I make a mistake? That happens. So I'll just like classify a trade as an oops. Anyway, once I've chosen one of these, like say I'm doing a daily higher low and I'm looking for a stair step break, like maybe price is coming down for hourly oversold and it's stair stepping down. So my tool for entering is a stair step. So I'll choose that. Anyway, I digress. These are the things that I like most of all. But if a market is going to break out like the Qs look like they might do right now, right? Like if we're going to break out of this range and start moving up, there's a high likelihood we're not going to get a daily higher low anytime soon. And so, I have to be realistic about that. And then that just means, okay, well, now I'm looking at an hourly higher low, or I'm looking at a trend rider or an axis or runner kind of trade. And I really need to size down to a B size if I'm going to take that kind of a trade, because they're harder to swing. It might have to be an intraday trade, whereas a daily higher low is much easier to swing because you're expecting then a daily higher high, for example. So anyway, I digress. This is what I'm thinking about and how I'm thinking about going about those trades once I try to get involved with those names. And I don't know, we're going to have to see what happens. Are we going to break to the upside and then come back in? Or are we just going to push and just keep stair stepping up on the daily? I'm watching the Qs. That's going to be my main vehicle that I look to trade with. Also, other things I'm looking at for the week. So that's my summary and take on what everybody else is talking about. I'm like, if we can get above this range and hold and go, I'm interested in, following the bulls and finding my way in. If we move up and then reject and come back down, I'm interested in hedging all the way back down to the lows. And so I literally have long swings that I'm going to be putting on hedges if we break and fail. And I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that. I think I might just do it with options. So I'm less concerned about the entry and more concerned with just like getting that cover in. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm not a laser hedger. I'm sort of new to it. So anyway, other things I'm looking at, this is kind of an interesting one. I thought with the AVGO has been stuck in this range. It has a gap to fill up above and it's been stuck trading sideways. But above, if I put an anchored VWAP on the high of this move up, and price has been holding above that anchored VWAP, just tight. And I'm expecting, especially after we got a sort of a dip here on Friday, maybe we push up and push through. That's one that I'm watching. That's a range breakout. I'm managing that NVIDIA trade I got into. I got in, not on this Wednesday, but I did an axis or runner trade here on this Thursday, and I posted a video about that earlier in the week on the Chart Guys community and how I did that. Great trade there. And then earnings, we have CVNA earnings on Wednesday, and CVNA, as you know, had that hit piece put out and it tanked, and then it's just been rallying ever since. And even like pushing super hard on Friday. I don't really understand what the hell is going on with this chart, but for some reason it's strong. It makes no sense to me, but earnings is coming up on Wednesday after hours. And so because it's so strong, I'm really interested in an earnings drift play. I'd be especially interested if it dumped a little bit before those earnings. So we'll see how that goes. And then other ones, so I talked about daily higher lows. Baba's been on this mad tear. I'm interested in a daily higher low if I can get it. Tem, I'm actually out of this now. I exited when we hit all-time highs and I was in from down here. So this was like a killer trade for me, but I sold too much too fast along the way. I did not think it was going to go as much as it did, and it is a very whipsaw name. So it was hard to hold as much as I did, but I'm pretty excited about the trade that I got, and I'm looking to try again if we get a daily higher low, but it is really getting extended now and starting to really stretch. And you can see why, because it just broke out into all-time high. So we're in blue sky mode now. And I don't know exactly how to trade that one. I'm going to be watching it every day to see what I can do. HIMS, also huge move. Going to get a daily higher low eventually. I'm watching for that. Intel. Yeah, Intel had that news about semiconductors being made more in the USA, and so it had this big bull move. I'm thinking maybe a daily higher low, but because that was news based and news can be fickle, I don't know if I'm going to trust that one, but it's something that I'm watching. And that's it. I'm not watching too much. I'm watching the market, thinking about hedging if we break out and fail, and I've got a couple of other random things that I'm looking, but for the most part, taking it light this week. 4 days of trading for me, and then I'm gone for a week. Anyway, happy trading. Hope you guys have a great week.